we're ready to go. Pragg was moving around in his chair a little bit there, and that's usually a sign of a chess player getting a little nervous.
Absolutely. And we have liftoff. We have C4 on the board, the English opening. I did not expect that, Tanya. Did you?
It's Magnus. He's capable of playing anything on move one. And, he's often spoken about anti-young player chess. So whenever he's playing this lot, this generation, which is now pretty much the new wave of chess which has arrived, he tries to keep it a little offbeat, just wants to get a game, not go into any big theoretical discussions. We see the knights coming out, and now Praggnanandhaa, with that last move, has opened up the diagonal for his bishop to continue development.
Yep, he starts with e6 and now he plays g3. So maybe he's going for the Catalan system, but Tanya, he has not pushed the d pawn yet. So maybe it's going to be some kind of, maybe he will play d4 later on, or maybe he can also play the move b3, which I believe is, it's called the Reti system. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, it's either d4 or b3. That's what's going to happen. But the fact that he hasn't played d4, definitely this is not something that I would expect Pragg to prepare before the round or before the game, And
he did not play d4. In fact, he's allowed Pragg to push that d pawn one step ahead, gaining more space as black, and this usually means that it's going to be quite a spicy middle game.
Absolutely right. I mean, Pragg playing d4 definitely means that he is going for the win here, because d4 definitely makes the game very, very interesting. This is not going to be a solid game anymore.
Not at all. And we have this concept of space in chess, right? We often say the side that has more space, and I'm sure everyone watching who follows broadcast has heard this term being thrown around a lot, space advantage. What it actually means and how a player gets a space advantage is if you find one of your pawns cross over to enemy lines, to the other half of the board. And Pragg's the first one to do that with the d pawn. Now, will that be a weakness or a strength in his game? Has that taken too much time from him to continue development? But I do see that it's Magnus who's slowed down. Pragg looking away, he's looking at the other boards. He looks pretty confident with the way the opening's gone so far.
Absolutely right. And Magnus thinking here could be because of Pragg playing his last move, bishop to b4 check, because that is not the traditional way of playing here. You can play c5 here, you can play knight c6 here, but bishop b4 check generally something you don't play. So this could be Pragg's preparation. And very good point about space. And I would like to also add something else here, because it's not just space, it's also he's controlling the center. He's also controlling the deep, the center in his opponent's territory. So that could also have, that could also be a strength in the future.
So far, with the play that we've been seeing by Pragg, it does feel like an ambitious approach. It's not a cagey approach by black. He's played more towards Magnus's territory. Meanwhile, still a slow game. But the one drawback of pushing this d pawn ahead is that sometimes the bishop, as we call it the Catalan bishop in chess, becomes extremely strong. This is the longest diagonal on the board. And you have to find a way to neutralize this bishop at some point.
Absolutely right. But at this point, because his own knight is kind of blocking that, Pragg doesn't have to worry about it so much just now. Maybe in the future of the game, I think the bishop on g2 can become a very, very dangerous piece. But for now, I think Pragg is fine. And just looking at the time itself, he has, there's only a 10-second increment, and already he's on 21 seconds. So, Pragg hasn't thought much so far, and, I believe he's still very much in opening preparation here. I think this looks really good for Pragg.
It's building up to be a fascinating middle game, and as you said that, I realized, we've been so taken in by Magnus versus Pragg that we forgot there are other matches on. So I think this is a good moment to check in with the other players and do a little opening roundup of the action that we're seeing. And is there a board that catches your attention that you'd like to go to, Sahaj?
I think let's just check maybe the other four boards, maybe one by one, and see where the games are, where we can see some interesting chess. Maybe we can check the game between Wesley and Vidit. We haven't checked that, and it has gone. The games have gone much.
What day is it? It's a weekday, right? It's Wednesday. We're in the afternoon, Sagar, and the hall is almost full.
And I was in Chennai right now, right? And okay, the chess craze is amazing there. But somehow in Kolkata, I find the people to be filled with so much of excitement. Yeah. Like in Chennai, it was more calm.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, yes, can we have a selfie? Yeah, like, yes, like everyone is really loving chess. So yeah. I'm very glad. Very glad.
Yeah, and so you were saying that, producer Ji, maybe we can get the Magnus and Pragg board up. I think Sagar probably just has, I know he's got a million things, but just stay with us for a few moments and while we bring up Magnus versus Pragg as well.
What a game. And look at the backdrop, right? This is so beautiful, this entire venue. And Sahaj bhai, how is it feeling for you?
It's feeling amazing, actually. I mean, this is such an amazing vibe here. I mean, such a big stage here. I mean, and the studio is fantastic.
Yeah, the
it
studio
is
is
amazing.
brilliant. And meanwhile, I think the biggest encounter of this tournament has occurred on the first round itself. Magnus really loves Pragg, Pragg really adores Magnus, and they're playing each other.
And they have this mutual respect for each other, Sagar, but they're also rivals on the board.
Right.
It's not, there's no sort of intimidation in Pragg's mind when he's playing against Magnus anymore. And when do you think that switched?
I think when he beat him so many times.
We were just talking about that.
But is Pragg really better?
It's interesting because we see our evaluation bar, which seems to say Black's doing well, but I'm looking at this position, right? Magnus's rook has gone all the way to that last rank. He has the control of the only open file in this position. Pragg has more space, more central control, but I would be a little worried with Magnus's rook coming into my camp.
Yeah, Magnus's rooks look very dangerous. But you know what, Tanya? We also have a GM here, and maybe Sahaj bhai, what do you think?
If I had to pick a color, I would say Pragg, because I think he's slightly better simply because he has more control over the dark squares. It's e5 d4, rightly pointed out by you, Tanya, that he has those pawns in the center, but also look at the square on b4, c5. I mean, he has such free space to move around, and I feel because of those dark squares, it's just very easy for Pragg to make moves here.
Now I'll keep thinking about 1 BHK every time you say space.
Every time you see me, sorry.
Every time you say space, Sagar.
Also, Pragg is a very tough opponent for Magnus in the first round because, generally Magnus is a slow starter. He's a bit rusty at the start, and Pragg is, I think, really wants to latch on to this opportunity here. I think it might be dangerous for Magnus.
But you bring up a really good point. And Saj, I want your view on this. Yes, we've got the evaluation bar telling us that Pragg's position looks great and everything. From a player perspective, is it going to be that easy for Pragg to feel the advantage here? Or do we have the evaluation bar bias right now?
No. I even if there wasn't any evaluation bar, because he has the rook on 8, and Magnus does have the rook on 8, but it doesn't have any mobility right now. That rook cannot go from 8 to anywhere else. In fact, on that whole file, on a5, a6, a7, 8, he has no space to sort of move around. So I feel like even on b8, the rook cannot move around. So I feel like that rook is just sitting there waiting to be exchanged with the f8 rook, and the other rook can maybe join in on the action. And then maybe it can be a bit dangerous. But is he going to move the bishop? I don't think so. Maybe he can just, go for queen b4. That looks pretty good to me.
Also, knight d7 to c5. If you move your knight to that square, it's the most, it's the nicest maneuver in such positions, right?
Absolutely right. And then you can sort of join in with knight to b4 as well.
Right.
And
then f5, e4, you start playing in the center with your pawns.
You're living in the penthouse then. It's not the 1 BHK anymore. Sagar, you have such a close relationship with these youngsters. You've kind of seen their whole journey. What is it like for them to play against somebody who, of course, they've idolized, grown up, playing against Magnus? What does it really mean for them?
I think what I'm observing is that from, we are going to play Magnus in this tournament, it has started to become, we are going to play Magnus now and we want to win. So, that approach has shifted even when I was traveling with Arjun yesterday in the cab, because we came from Chennai together. They're still excited to face Magnus, but now it comes more from the space that can we really test the best in the business, rather than saying that, this is now an opportunity to face the best in the business. So it's just a small change in mindset.
It's massive.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. It's one of those small step for what is that saying? Small step for mankind.
Yeah, it's like small step by
Chat
human
with-
and
Small step for men and giant leap for mankind. something
Yes,
like that.
that's the one, Saj. And that's what it feels like for these youngsters, yeah, which this switch has happened, and completely agree. And it's not just the Indian youngsters. I feel it's the same attitude with a Nodderbeck. And it happens when you get that first win
I agree.
against a player.
I agree. And what a field, right? Nodderbeck and Keimer, both very talented youngsters. Whenever they say like who are the most talented youngsters, the names come up. Prag, Arjun, Gukesh, Keimer, Nodderbeck, and we have like 4 out of 5 here.
Absolutely.
Because Gukesh has to play World Championship, otherwise maybe he would also have been here.
Speaking of mindset, what according to the two of you, I'll start with you, Saj, is the most ambitious move for Prag here?
He played
He
G6.
played
Oh, we
G6.
have?
He played G6 just to create space, now even I'm thinking about the same thing. But after G6, I think he's making space for the king to come out to G7. I think it's a very nice strategic move, and I think soon he can employ Sagar Bhai's plan. With knight B7, knight C5. I really like that plan actually. The more I think about it, the more I want to play it myself.
Also, this square for the king has been opened up, king G7 at the right time. So I feel like Prag is building this up slowly and steadily.
Yeah.
He's enjoying himself. Time-wise, also slightly ahead on the clock. Yeah, looking good for Prag.
Looking really good. And he responds with B3. I mean, maybe is he gearing up for Queen A2? Maybe just to exchange with Queen A3. But maybe he's playing Queen A2 to make space for that E1 knight to get to C2. That's maybe his plan in this position. But still, it feels a bit harder to make moves for white here than it
Yes.
does for black.
Yes, I agree. Like king G7, knight D7, knight C5, all these plans coming up.
Yeah.
So,
Sagar, Saj, I'm just thinking about this time back in 2018 when Prag got a wildcard entry into this tournament.
Yes.
It was his debut in the Tata Steel Chess India, and it was Praggnanandhaa who came in as the two youngsters having this platform. And here we are talking about him perhaps having an advantage against the world number one with the black pieces.
no, I cannot tell you how important this tournament has played a role for these youngsters. And earlier I used to think like, okay, it's just one tournament. What difference would it make? It's 9 games. A player has to play many. But now I have realized that one tournament can change anyone's career. And I think Tata Steel Chess India has kept on doing that, and they have stayed true to their vision of giving 5 Indians an opportunity every single year. And that is commendable. I really admire this.
And from that opportunity, these players have now become part of the world elite. They become part of the world's best players.
So it's like earlier it was like 5 elite players, 5 Indians. Now it's like 10 elite players. That's how this tournament has become so strong.
So eventually Prag goes for your idea, Sahaj, of perhaps a trading off one of the rooks on that 8th rank. So a little tension will be released, but
can't we win the pawn? Isn't it a free pawn?
Is the
Be
bishop
careful.
getting trapped? Is the bishop getting trapped? Is there knight
sure that.
B1 maybe?
Oh, knight B1.
Is
Wow.
it? Knight B1 looks...
Or knight E4. Would that also work?
I was just a bit afraid to play
and let's
knight
show
E4 in
that.
this
I
position.
think we have to show the lines both of you are discussing. So it looks like a free pawn, but also notice how the bishop has no retreating squares. Let's go with one of the moves. Let's start with knight to E4. The queen suddenly becomes the monster piece. And the point is, yes, you have one retreating square, but it's not going to be good enough because after a queen trade, you've got the move G4, trapping the bishop, winning the bishop.
Yeah.
So bishop takes pawn is going to be a massive blunder.
I think this little pawn push is something that Magnus is asking Prag that did you really think that you could win that pawn? And Prag quickly goes back.
But very often, Sahaj, it's about provoking this move as well, because sometimes later on, Prag had definitely seen he can't capture that free pawn. The h3 pawn can become a target. The queen and the bishop might line up and start hinting at this pawn which has been pushed to h3.
Absolutely. It's just about gaining that extra tempo whenever you play Queen D7. And he just has this in the back of his mind, anytime he can play this and gain this tempo. But yeah, Queen C1. Yeah, I think he's going for that.
Wants the knight to go there.
Yeah. Oh, the H6.
Oh, he's also attacking H6. Nice
Yeah.
one, Tanya.
Nice
Just
one.
showing there. I was looking for the knight, but actually a very nice move by Magnus.
It's eyeing that square. It's a tender spot. We were highlighting h3, but the main idea has to be, what is this knight doing there? One of the big advice that I had from my coach when I was young, that when you're struggling with space, think about which piece you can improve. And that clearly for white has to be this knight. He wants to move it forward. He doesn't want to move it to a square where it comes on the way of its own bishop.
Right.
True. Absolutely right. And
Sorry, go on.
The knight c2 looks like a really nice, and you can also gain space via b4 and maybe c5 later. I know it looks a bit unlikely at the moment, but it just adds another piece, that sort of strengthens your idea of b4. Maybe that could be possible later on.
And Sagar, I know we've just hijacked you, so anytime you just tell us, like sit and analyze with us now.
Yeah, no, I'm getting the front seat view to this game. Otherwise I had to be in the working in the press room and so on. So I'm enjoying this, but please feel free to tell me when to go.
We will keep you here forever, so you will have to make that call.
We love it.
But also talk to us, Sagar, a little bit about the Magnus aura in Kolkata, because that's something very special. I've seen, he is a superstar everywhere that he goes, but here everyone just loves him.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Magnus is loved worldwide, but also now Magnus is, very, very thoughtful about everything he does wherever he goes. He realizes that when he spends time in India, he can really inspire a lot of people. And this he managed to do yesterday. If you look at how he was so encouraging to the little boy, 3-year-old Anish Sarkar. This is a life-changing for someone, just Magnus shaking hands, giving autographs and so on.
Even though Anish's favorite player is Anish.
Oh, he's so cute. He was playing today in the open section.
Oh wow,
Yes.
so he's here in the building.
He was playing here and he will be here somewhere. So
Amazing.
He's racing towards his 15:55 and he's like, I need to become a GM by when I'm 8 years old. Knight c2. Magnus,
Great call.
actually, these are the little maneuvers that Magnus is really good at, and he's slightly improving his position. So is Pragg. So now we have to see who makes the first mistake.
Absolutely. And apart from b4, I also see the idea of e3. Because later on you can say, I'm going to take this pawn on d4, and then maybe that d4 pawn can become a weakness in the longer run.
Very rightly said. This is in this structure, either you can get the b4 push or the e3 push, and I think Magnus will be keeping an eye out for both of them.
I'm just, once again, I want to bring this up, that I am loving the visual that we are seeing right now. The Dhanodanya auditorium, it's almost packed.
Right.
Middle of the afternoon on a
What's
week.
the day today?
It's Wednesday.
What will happen on the weekend?
I mean, everyone watching, you have to be here. And Sagar, you were saying that there are more events, because this tournament, it's a bit of a celebration of chess. It's not just the masters playing.
Right, there's a festival happening, then open tournament. I saw that there's a juniors tournament happening. And overall, I think the organizers have taken care that everyone has a good time here. And by the way, Pragg has moved his knight. That plan which we were talking about with the knight maneuver is happening.
Let's quickly bring up